Welcome to Cure is Curious. I'm Nicole Alifanti, one of the founders and the president for the Coalition of Understanding Racism Through Education. We've been offering programs here in Larchmont, Mamaroneck, and throughout Westchester, New York since 2018. And Cure's mission is to educate ourselves and our neighbors about topics that speak to systemic and institutional racism in this country. This podcast is new, and these first several episodes are about immigration. It's not really a topic that's only happening on the national stage and very prominently sort of in our ethos every day, but it's really happening in our backyard because we have an immigrant-rich community. And today we're going to focus on a personal story that we're really grateful for. We have Valeska Mancilla with us, and she was raised in Yonkers, went to the University of Delaware. Her profession was museum archivist, and she's currently working at home with 3 children and a new puppy in the town of Mamaroneck. And she's quickly become a community organizer, keeping a keen equity lens on the community. And you're also the chair of the Larchmont Mamaroneck Human Rights Committee. You're newly on the board of Cure. Yay for us. We're really lucky also to have you consulting with the Community Resource Center, which empowers our immigrant community. And you're advocating for the protection of immigrant families in New York State. I can't think of a better advocate. And you are also an active PTA member for Central School here in Mamaroneck. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We wanted to highlight your story because, every story is so nuanced, and we say immigration, immigrants, like it's this monolith, and it's not. Everybody has a story. So you are a Chilean Palestinian, and I don't know why it just makes my mind open in so many ways. Your story is really fascinating. It's complicated. And so many of us are ignorant about this process of how you become a citizen. So I really, really want to thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited to talk tonight.
Oh, cool. Okay. So if we started from the end and worked our way to the beginning of your story, what would you say the overreaching theme would be?
I think it's the lack of information, the lack of support, and the opportunities and knowledge when going through the process of becoming a citizen, and even backtracking from that, just becoming a permanent resident in general.
So, okay, how did your parents meet? Let's start there.
So my parents, I think, met around the 70s in Chile. They were both from the same small town. We're from a town called La Calera in Chile. And I think they always ran around in the same circles as kids. And then finally, as adults, they date, they meet through people, and they get married. And often one of the greatest stories I always love to share about my parents is when their proposal actually happened. And it's always a great story. They had been dating for a while. And then my mom, I think at one point was finally like, okay, what's going on? And she calls my dad, and he picks up the phone. He's like, hey. And she just asks, yes or no. And he's like, what? And she's like, yes or no. And so he's like, okay, yes. And she's like, okay, be at the church at 3:00. We're getting married. And he was like, okay, let's do it. But even the funnier part was, the day of the wedding comes, my mom got married in a blue suit and my dad was in his suit. And the hour came and he didn't show.
No.
And then all of a sudden, probably an hour or two later, he shows up muddied from head to toe. His car had stalled. Like they couldn't even, they didn't even know, he didn't know what to do, change his tire when everything got muddy. And so he quickly changed and they rushed to the church. I think they grabbed 2 people off the street while they're like, kind of like it's like telephone of telling the people in the community, like the neighborhood being like, just get, your people there. And so they grabbed 2 people off the streets just to be their witnesses. And they just got married quickly, I think, probably in between services or something.
That is so cool.
And then that was it's just like funny story to hear about my
Oh, yeah.
parents.
And so much respect for your mom. She's like, yes or no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So, okay, Chilean, Palestinian, which of your cultures do you feel more connected to, or are you equally connected to both? Or
So I grew up with my Chilean culture mostly because, we spoke Spanish at home. My mother is Chilean. My father, although he was born and raised in Chile and spoke Spanish and went to Chilean schools, his parents and grandparents were fled from Palestine to Chile.
wow.
And so he had the culture within his house, but my mother, when we lived in the States, predominantly had the Chilean culture in our household. I learned to speak Spanish, and then I learned to speak English in school. I was incredibly fortunate, though, because my father's mother was able to travel to the States often. And so my abuela Cata, it was abuela Cata, she was of Palestinian roots. So I absorbed that culture mostly through the foods. Like, that's how I learned about my Palestinian culture, was through the foods and the meals that she would prepare. And then that carried that story. And so as I've gotten older, I've learned more about it. But predominantly at home, it was mostly Chilean.
Got it. Wow.
Yeah.
And so where were you born, and how did you come to the United States?
I was born in Chile. I was born in Santiago, which is the capital. And then we came to the States when I was very young. And like every story that mostly you will hear of people coming to the States, they come to the States for opportunity. Our parents came for opportunities. And that's what was always known as the United States, that you could dream. And my father was a big dreamer. He wanted big things, and was one of the things that we always knew about my dad. He was a dreamer. And so they came to the States for that opportunity, to have a better life, and hoping that with the sacrifice that they would do by leaving their entire world in Chile, their support system, everyone, that they would be able to have a better opportunity for themselves, for me, and then my brother.
I think people don't think about how deep that is when someone leaves their home country. There has to be a real pull, and dreaming and opportunity, I think, are bigger than we give them credit for.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm, sometimes thinking, like, do I want to move 3 towns over from my parents, which would be a 20-minute drive instead of a 5-minute drive? You know, like, could you imagine, do I want to leave my siblings, my aunts and uncles, my cousins, the people I know that I grew up with, to this strange place? So I get that pull and that really deep calling, it must be. So what were your parents' journeys to citizenship?
So it started with my father. My father was the first to start the process. He, in the 1980s, was able to receive a work permit. That permit would allow him the opportunity to apply for residency. So as he went through the process, finally in the 1990s, I think it was President Bush at the time, signed an opportunity for these workers to apply for their residency. And so he was the first to start the process. And so finally, when he received it, it's got to be at least 3-4 years after. Now, mind you, this is like proof of taxes, that paying your taxes, proof of work here, that you are not a burden to the country, that you are an active member, you are an ideal citizen, as they would like to see.
Right. And not to interrupt, but going back to our amazing conversation with Irvin Ibargüen, the professor.
Yeah.
These moments in history when America says, here's a work permit.
Yeah.
Because they need you.
Yeah.
Right? We need you.
Yeah. So he fell under that criteria of, like, there were workers that were needed in this country, and he was here, and they offered him the opportunity to do this.
Right.
And so after he had finally received his residency, then he started the process of my mother and I. Now, during this time, my brother was born here. So he was already a U.S. citizen. So I think I was approximately like 7 years old when we first started this process. And overall, it took about 10 years until I got my final approval to be a resident. And I was getting ready to start thinking about college and thinking about the possibilities for me. there was still this looming. I wasn't sure if I was going to get my residency and whether or not that was a possibility for me in general.
And that piece, that's the thing that I wanted to ask you. Like, just let's take a second to process that you come over here at what, 2, whatever, you're a baby. So you have no memories of Chile.
No.
And then you're here. America is your culture. It's your people. It's your everything. And you become a young adult and you have to prove that this is your home and that you belong here. Like, what did that really feel like?
You know what? It's really interesting when you're young, you don't really know it. And I find it really interesting also this American culture idea, because we were Chilean and we were raised in the same culture in our household. Right. And it was never really an assimilation of it. It was just natural to us. I mean, all of our neighbors spoke English. They all were born here and we did everything together. Yeah. So there was no real understanding that we were the other in that point. But
at some point as an adult, when now you're like grappling with your citizenship, you're thinking, wait, this country that is my home, period, end of story, might not take me.
Well,
like,
I think
even wrap your head around that?
I think at that moment when I was about to start college, or when I was applying for college, that's when it hit me of being like, oh, there might be a possibility that I have to leave the only home I've ever known, the only culture I've ever known, to possibly give myself an opportunity, and that opportunity might not be here, that I would have to almost do the opposite of what my parents did. And that's when I think that's when I realized it wasn't the growing up. It was at that moment when I knew that having my permanent residency would stop me from being able to pursue something.
So go back to your father's story, because you said your theme was not knowing. Your theme was misinformation. Your theme was, oh, had we known. Like, where did that all get tangled?
So one of the things that we think about is that there's a process. There's a process to it. And my parents followed the process that they saw was right. They got in line. They did it the right way. They saved their money. They saw the lawyers, multiple lawyers. And, they do this process without the guarantee of whether or not we're actually going to get it. And so we're already year 8, year 9. And my mom's like, this process can't take any longer. So my mom had decided to go to Connecticut and see what at the time was a church that a lawyer worked out of to help with immigration process. So she went to go see that lawyer. And it was that lawyer, after looking at our documentation, mind you, we've been working with a lawyer before to get the process. Right. He looks at our documentation and he is like, why didn't you apply for your daughter and your wife's permanent residency when you applied for your permanent residency?
So your father,
my father's permanent residency. And my mom was like, what do you mean? She's like, under that 1990 Bush policy for immigration, a part of it was family reparation to be part of it. Of course. And so my father legally was allowed to also include my mother and I in that process. So we didn't have to wait this 10-year period of just even getting our residency.
So painful.
And so it was just kind of a shock to my mom of being like, we spent 10 years. So many things were missed out in those 10 years. And especially my mother, because she was not a resident or a citizen or anything, and not even having a work permit. She was legally here because she was in the process of getting her residency. But she didn't have that legal work permit to be able to do that. And my mother had spent her entire life doing the jobs that most immigrant families come do, are the labor intensive jobs. She cleaned houses, she took care of kids. Yeah. She couldn't go to school really because she didn't have the funding to be able to do that, or have work a job that paid taxes that would then, as she retired, would then have Social Security. She missed 10 years of this.
So labeling her resident would have given her
opportunities to do it.
But your dad literally just didn't fill out that paperwork.
The lawyer had never informed him properly. It was never even told. It was never a discussion. It was never an option.
Wow.
For my parents.
Right.
And it wasn't until seeing this lawyer. And even at that, this lawyer was even like, there is a website that you can go on and see what number your application is up. So you have a date to go towards. So you'll know exactly. It's just this basic information of being able to communicate what your process is, what your options are, and you know, the policies that are there. So, I mean, we just missed out. My mother, most specifically, my mother missed out on so many opportunities to be able to have a successful career here in her youth. Or even just as simple as being able to travel to go see her parents.
Right, because you can't go back.
Because we can't go back.
You know,
so think about it. Like,
that's
my
heartbreaking.
My mom was fantastic about making sure we called my grandparents, we called my aunts, we had the conversations. I was fortunate enough that I was able to speak Spanish and learn English at the same time as a young child. So I was able to communicate with my family in Chile. But imagine not being able to see your parents for 15, 17 years.
I don't even understand that.
Or your parents getting sick and your parents getting old.
I was going to say, I have a friend whose mom just passed in Mexico. And because she's been going through the process, she couldn't be there. And it's just devastating.
It's devastating.
Yeah.
Your parents are getting old. You're missing out on things.
Right.
And so my mother missed out on so much. And it's heartbreaking to see that it could have been a little bit easier for all of us.
Yeah. Had he just, his lawyer said, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Or by the way, you qualify for this.
Yeah.
Just look at the policy and re-qualify. And so that's where it was just kind of one of those moments of just like, it's so simple. It could have been so simple. And it was just made so much more complicated.
But I want to also highlight again that this is the quote, legal process. Like all of this, you're illegal or you're illegal. Our ignorance is so deep. Like, sure, do people come here, hide away, you know, don't ever get any documentation, get cash jobs and just try to stay, you know, hidden? Sure. Okay. A small percentage of people. But more often than not, you are documented, that people know you're here. You're meeting with your lawyer. You're meeting with your ICE agent. You are working. You're paying taxes because you have an ITN number. Like, it's just, you do these check-ins to say, I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm waiting. And that is the, quote, legal process. So there's a place from when you enter to when you become a citizen or a resident of this like legal limbo. It's not illegal. And that is the frustrating part of this.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And the documentation, the paperwork, the recording, the making sure you're not a burden to the country in a way, which is what they want, you know? That's part of the process.
Yeah, because no Americans are a burden to the country.
I mean, my mother didn't have health insurance the entire time. My mother, you know, I mean, we were fortunate that in New York State at the time, they offered health insurance. There was a program for health insurance for children, regardless of your status.
Right.
So my mother was able to apply for us as kids to be able to have that insurance.
Yeah.
But when my mother got sick, it was a full bill for everything. And so she would not go to the doctor as often as she probably should have. We did not have a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, we always had, you know, clothes on our backs. We had a roof over our heads. My parents were probably the hardest workers I have ever known. And that is the quality that I have learned from them and have carried throughout. They were amazing. Yeah. And amazing for my mom to do this and my dad to do this in a country with no support, no community, no family support.
Right.
You know, your village.
Yeah.
She had to create her village even though, and she learned English through the process. I mean, I always think about it. I was like, Mom, how did you learn English? And in a way, if you really think about it, she learned English through my homework, between working working at taking care of kids and cleaning homes. She mostly started cleaning homes. So she would, kind of learn English through the process and then come home and have it reinforced through my homework.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of amazing how she even self-taught herself that.
Yeah. It's so amazing.
And then at the same time that my mom and I were getting our residency, my father was eligible to get his citizenship. So it literally happened right before our residency appointment. My father became a naturalized citizen.
Wow.
And then we became residents. And then 3 years later, after our residency, my mom was eligible to become a U.S. citizen.
Wow.
And technically, I would have fallen under that same process
until the lawyer handed him the right papers.
Actually started my citizenship process. And then we come to find out so many other things to go through it as well. And so that was just another round of information and mishaps and stuff like that. So when I finally applied to become my citizen, I had graduated from college. At the time, my parents had separated, after 20 something years of marriage. And I think like all the stresses of the world.
Sure.
So I had moved back to New York from Delaware because my mom had gotten her citizenship and she, they gotten separated and she wanted to go back to Chile to almost finish an education there. And she also wanted to be close to her parents.
Right.
And so when I had come back to New York, I finally, I was amazed I even was able to find a job because again, we're looking at 2008, the housing crisis,
right.
the hardship of trying to even find a job for graduates. I was able to land a job at a museum in the city. I was working at the Smithsonian Cooper Hewitt there. And so my mom was like, great, you have a job and your brother is working and going to school. I think you guys can live together and I'm going to go to Chile and you guys get to be adults now. And
she had that mobility,
and
right?
She had the mobility to do. Well, she saw that she had the mobility. Now, mind you, I mean, I'm a recent graduate. I have a brother who's a year and a half younger than me. He is going to school. He is working. But we don't have a savings. Like, we just started. We just started our lives. And I'm also walking out with school debt.
Oh, my gosh.
And so
you're an American now.
Yeah, I was like a full red American. And so so at that process, so around that time, there was conversations about the citizenship test, the price of the citizenship test increasing. So at the time, it was $400 to apply to become a U.S. citizen. Now, for someone that's just starting work and remember, I'm learning all these bills of having to pay for apartments and having to pay utilities.
It's huge.
And, you're learning. So $400 was a lot of extra cash for me at the time. But it would have been more. I think they were even bumping it up to $8,000 to $1,000 for your citizenship test. And on top of it, they were planning on changing the entire structure of the citizenship test. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to get it in and apply. I'm eligible. So scrounged up my $400. I submitted my applications, submitted also I had to go get my biometrics, which is your fingerprinting and all of your background checks and things like that also done. And you remember you get days off. You have to take days off for these things.
Right. Of the work you need to pay for the test. Yeah.
So I submitted my application and I finally got my letter of saying, hey, citizenship test is this day. I had a wonderful support system at work. My boss was so kind. She allowed me to just take a longer lunch break so that I can go take my citizenship test and not have to take a complete day off from work. So I go in. I remember I walked into I think it was Federal One Plaza from where it was. I walk in and they bring me into a room with, the immigration officer in front of you, and I'm sitting literally across from him at a desk, and he's just reading off the questions from the immigration test to me to become my citizenship test to me. So I'm answering these questions back to him as he's asking me in real time.
Wow.
There's like a written part of it where you have to like write whether or not you write in English, can you write properly and understand the logic and everything. And so mind you, I've lived in this country all my life. I know American history because I learned it at school.
Yeah.
You know, so it was stuff that you kind of know. Your 3 branches of government,
Yeah.
who your president is.
Mm-hmm.
These are the questions that they ask you. And so I at the end of the test, he turns to me and he goes, "Congratulations, you passed your test." And I was like, "Great, sounds great." And then he goes, "But," and I was like, "What?" He goes, "I can't grant you citizenship."
Oh.
And I go, "Why?" I was like, he's like, "Because there is a possibility that you are already a citizen." And I was just like, "How does that, what?" And I go, "Well," and he's like, "So I can't grant you citizenship today." I was like, "But I passed the test. Can't
Right.
we
So
just go
if I'm
with
already
this?
a citizen, let's do it twice.
Like, why can't we just
double
and he goes,
citizen?
"No, I can't do that because now we have to go back and confirm whether or not you are eligible for it."
I'm
And I
having a heart attack.
"Okay, so then what's next steps?" And he goes, "Well, you'll have to apply for your citizenship certificate." And then I was like, wait, backtracking. Okay. And I asked him, I was like, "How am I already a citizen?" And he goes, "Well, during Clinton's administration, they had changed the rules at the time that no longer, if your child was foreign born and you were a U.S. citizen, no longer did both parents have to be U.S. citizens. Just one of your parents had to be a U.S. citizen.
Wow.
You automatically, your child is automatically granted citizenship. Now, at the time, it was for kids like myself and for adoptees to make the process easier for parents. Now, this went into effect months before my father got his citizenship test.
Oh.
And my citizenship. And my father's citizenship came months before I got my residency. So this is back when I was 16, 17. My parents could have, again, the lawyers could have told them.
Here we go to the theme.
Hey, yeah, exactly, the theme.
Yeah.
Hey, your daughter is a resident now, but she is eligible to become a U.S. citizen now because you are. So this is a process you should have done.
Wow.
And so now I was like, okay, so well, now just give it. Like, I mean,
Yeah, just stamp
can't
it.
you just give it to me? Like,
Yeah.
I have. He's like, no, you have to go through the process because you're an adult and you have to go through the process. And I was like, okay, what's the process? Well, you have to fill what is now known as the N-600, which is getting your citizenship certificate, which is an added $600 cost. And then going through the process of also getting all the legal documentation, which is my birth certificate, my dad's birth certificate, my parents' birth certificate, their marriage certificate.
Oh.
And I'd have to go to the Chilean consulate, get those, and then have them translated to English and then submitted. And on top of it, I would also need my dad's citizenship certificate.
I'm exhausted. Your whole family are citizens of America, and you're not.
Yeah.
Oh my! I'm sorry. This
and
is too
because
much.
my parents were estranged at the time, my mother had moved to Chile. Shortly after, my dad moved to Chile, and we were not in talks. Like, we were not talking.
You weren't in
at the
contact
time.
with him,
and so I had
Wow.
no way of getting his citizenship certificate in general. And so I remember leaving that office, going back to work, and my lovely coworkers had decorated the entire lunchroom with American flags and apple pie.
Oh, no.
And like, I walk in and I break down.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I can't afford this. I could barely kind of scrape up the money that it was to get my citizenship. I couldn't afford this.
No.
So I kind of just let it go and hoped that in the future I might have an opportunity.
Wow.
And it went years. I went years of just being a permanent resident. I missed out on voting. I missed out on a lot of things.
Yeah.
Of just being a part of this country in that way. And then it wasn't until I got married and we quickly got pregnant. And just then the Trump administration was happening. The first Trump administration.
Trump won.
And when I found out that I was pregnant, I had fear of what could happen. I had just married my husband, who was a citizen. He was born here in this country. And so I thought that maybe I would have an opportunity to go through that process. So after I had my kids, I went to the lawyer that had done my residency to inquire whether or not I was eligible to become a citizen, maybe through my husband in a way, kind of. And sure enough, she told me no, I had to do the N-600, or I had to find a way to get my father to sign an affidavit to allow the government to open up his immigration records in order for me to get his citizenship certificate.
Wow.
Somehow. So I was just like, that's just impossible. So I was kind of like, I don't know what to do. A couple months later, my mom calls me and she goes, so I was cleaning out my paperwork and I found a copy of your dad's citizenship certificate.
Amen.
I was like, what? I was like, you just found this now? Like, so she sends it to me. And so I think, okay, I got this certificate. What's another proof for me to be a citizen without having to go through the N-600 process? I was like, I'm going to go apply for a passport. I got all of my, birth certificates, my parents' marriage certificates, all of it translated into English after the consulate. And I went to the passport office in White Plains and presented them with all my paperwork and the copy of my dad's citizenship certificate. And I literally, it was like kind of like a Hail Mary pass.
Yeah.
Of like, all right, let's see what this, and if not, then I would have to go through the large cost of getting whatever I needed to get. And I walked away. And then COVID happened and we were in the middle of COVID. And all of a sudden I'm sitting at my desk working with the kids running around. And I get an email from the U.S. passport office saying that my passport was granted and that it was on its way.
Oh my gosh.
So after 30 plus years of the process, I finally got my citizenship.
I'm going to cry.
I broke down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it was so hard.
Yeah. Let's take a second.
Yeah.
Because we're both crying.
Yeah.
Okay. Woo.
It was it was a lot.
Astrid's crying. The LMC studio manager Astrid is crying. Yeah. It's a lot.
It was a lot. It was heartbreaking, but the sense of relief that we no longer had to worry.
Yeah.
I no longer had to worry. I didn't have to worry. And that I was so proud when I went to go cast my first vote in my mask. I was so proud to finally have hit that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge.
And not have to worry. And it was great.
I am like so just blown away by this story and so grateful that you shared it, because again, people out there, like, this is a journey for every single person who dreams about being in this country that has literally just been built on immigrants. I mean, and again, it's that come here, go away, right? It's like, we need you now, we don't need you. We need you now, we don't need you. And at the end of the day, like, it isn't America without immigrants. It just isn't.
It's not. And you know what the thing is that we always talk about, like, my mother is always hesitant. She's kind of quiet. She doesn't love to talk about the immigration process and the fear of it, even after becoming a citizen. And I tell Mom, no, I'm like, we have to talk about it because this is a success story. I am a success story because I am a citizen, but people don't understand the work that it takes for us and the sacrifices and the worry and the stress and the fear that is associated with it. and it's a success story.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is not this easy thing. And there is a process, and we go through the process. But the process is hard.
It is, and different for everyone. Had you come from a different country at a different time, it would have been another story.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the unbelievable mind-bending stuff about this.
Yeah.
I just, I can't thank you enough. I'm so glad that you are in our community.
Thank you.
You are, I mean, when you were saying like, you have to prove you're not dead weight here in America, you know, you are the story of the people that make our communities incredible. I mean, you've done so much in the short time that I know you, and I'm so grateful that you're my friend and you care so deeply about everyone and everyone's dignity. And I just want to note too, right, there are people who come here fleeing great violence, fleeing great oppression.
Yeah.
I've heard other stories about people who have come right here to Mamaroneck who were in situations that no one could even imagine, and they don't have lawyers and they don't have money and they didn't have parents who got their like they are, you know, and so again, like it's no joke. It's no joke.
The one thing that after going through my process and then seeing how it is that I want those that are applying to know that there are options. And I want them to know just to speak and inquire and ask questions, and don't be fearful if about it, because and like you said, this country is made up of immigrants. We've all brought our part to it. We've all made a piece of it. We've invited our cultures, our food, our religions, our just in general, it makes us all authentic in the way, you know, in our own ways. And so we should be embracing all of it and giving everybody opportunity, because opportunity leads to advancements beyond our belief.
Yes.
And it provides community and safety and just everything that makes it great. I just hope that people can see that in our story that we're all hardworking and that we all just want better, and just to give us the opportunity to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, right now, unfortunately, our administration is changing laws, and we will stay on top of that. There's always resources after these podcasts as well. So I just want to thank you again for sharing, for being an incredible community member, for joining CURE, for being my friend.
Thanks for crying with me.
Yeah, no, that was like a lot. But I'm so glad you shared. And I also want to say just really quickly, you know, I'm probably a fourth generation Italian on one side, maybe a third on the other, Sicilian. And there are no stories like this in my family because we just came here.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a struggle, and yes, it was a dream and all that great stuff, and we worked really hard. But we came before all of this line, you know, like get online like my great-great-grandparents. Yeah. I'm sorry, folks. It's very different these days. And we need to just...
It's all dependent on the administration and the policy that each administration changes. And policy changes in the blink of an eye.
Yes, as we see.
And you don't even know, as we see it, is very clear evident. So one day you could be doing the legal process, and then the next day the administration can decide that that's not a process anymore and cancel it, and then completely wipes out everything that you have done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, you know, we're so dependent on what the laws and the processes, and even when we do it correctly and then they change it on you, is where it's just like,
and anybody,
what do you do?
And I just want to go on record, anybody who wishes that on anyone, honestly, like needs to check in with themselves, because that's an awful, awful thing to wish on people. Anyway,
so sorry.
No. So, okay. Thank you out there for those who are listening. I am Nicole Alifanti, president of CURE. CURE is Curious is produced at the LMC Media Studio on the Avenue with Astrid Rivera. And our opening and closing music is written by myself and my partner, Carrie Hopwood. We are at learnwithcure.com for more information. And please stay curious.